Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Doc Holliday, and I am the president of Superior Sales Training. I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's workshop, Competing with News. They paid a heavy price for that. What occurred when the new technology was introduced was called a paradigm shift. New information was introduced, and this new information utterly changed the landscape in that particular industry. There's something you should know about a paradigm shift. Anytime a paradigm shift occurs, everybody moves back to the starting line at the same time. The playing field has been re-leveled, so to speak. And any advantage that anybody had under the old technology is now gone. Everybody has an equal opportunity at the new opportunities that this new technology or this new information presents. You can look at newspapers across the country and go through the daily newspaper, and you're going to find pages with differing numbers of columns, and that's all built around the amount of ad space they've sold, the editorial content they need to put on that page. Sometimes there'll be 6 columns, sometimes there'll be 8 columns, depending on. But when they sell their advertising, universally newspapers sell their advertising based on a 6-column model. That's how they measure the width of advertising in the newspaper. Now, from market to market, though, the actual dimension of that width will differ, because a lot of newspapers have decided that they needed to reduce material costs. So in order to save a little bit money on newsprint costs, they've shrunk the size of the newspaper. They still divide it into 6 columns in terms of selling the advertising, but now those columns are smaller. They also have a page depth, and what I have found is that this is not necessarily universal. The most common page depth is 21 inches, I will tell you that. But I've seen newspapers that were anywhere from 20 inches deep to 22 inches deep. So, again, they're doing that primarily to try to save money on material costs, the cost of newsprint, but that determines to a degree how much ad space that they actually can sell. Now, they have a unit that's called a standard advertising unit, or an SAU. And an SAU is a space on a page that is 1 inch deep and 1 column wide. And their rate card features what they call their SAU rate. In other words, the amount of money that they charge for 1 column inch of advertising. As a matter of fact, this is a picture taken directly from a small medium market newspaper rate sheet that clearly shows you how they price the ads. They give you the dimensions of the columns, because you need to know that. That's called mechanical information, and an advertiser needs to know how big to make their ad when they actually have it designed and laid out. So they get that mechanical information, but this shows that they multiply 1 column times the number of inches times the SAU rate, and that determines how much they're going to charge. First of all, you want to determine what that advertiser is doing, and you want a copy of your local newspaper's rate card. I'm going to show you in a little while how to do that, but primarily you get it from their website. About 90 to 95% of the time you're going to find the local newspaper's rate card on their website. If not, there's other ways to go about getting it. We'll talk about that. Then you want to make them, let them know that they're smart for being in the newspaper. I can understand why you would use the newspaper. The newspaper does a couple things quite well, and you list 1 or 2 things that you know is important to that advertiser. Then you introduce some of the downsides. At the same time, no medium is perfect. There are some concerns that we should probably discuss. This is where you bring in some of the modern weaknesses, and you start to talk a little bit more about that internet and the effect that it's having on newspaper. Then you start to introduce the concept of combining it with television. Staying in the newspaper, but at a smaller size, taking the savings, investing in television, combining those two, and then you use the short rate calculator to calculate what's going to happen if they move those dollars over. And once you find out that there's a short rate penalty involved, you figure out a way to insulate them from that loss. Now they're going to get better results. They're going to get 2 media. They're going to get sight, sound, and motion, and then they're going to get the action step media with the newspaper, all for the same price. Not going to cost them a dime more. Because what we have found is that retail advertisers tend to be very habitual in the way that they use the newspaper. So let's again talk about this computer store. Let's say that every year they have a big back-to-school sale, because that's a big time for computer sales, right? So they're going to have a big back-to-school sale, okay? If you call them up and say, hey, I saw your back-to-school ad, and I'd like to tell you about why you should maybe spend some money on my television station, you're going to get those big 2 objections. So instead, what you do is you go to the microfilm file, you look at newspapers from 9 months ago, and what you're going to see are ads that are going to probably be repeated 3 months from now. That's right. So now you can call up that same advertiser and say, I've done a little research on your company. One of the things I noticed was that you have a big back-to-school computer sale every year. Before you get too deep into planning for that, I was wondering if you might have, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes for me to drop by so I can explain to you a way that you can stay in the newspaper but also add television, increase your impact, increase your reach, and at the same time not have to spend one thin dime more to accomplish. Let's talk about automotive. Every year, the National Auto Dealers Association releases a report. This is the report from 2009. It's free download from their website. But there's a chart in here that I thought was very, very interesting. Take a look at this. This shows the breakout of dealer advertising dollars from 1998 to 2008. Now, this is the latest numbers that they released. But what you see is that 10 years ago, the newspaper industry was getting more than 50 cents out of every advertising dollar. Today, that's down below 24%. Yikes. That's a huge migration of dollars. Now, television has grown about 2 percentage points over that 10 years. So, I mean, that's incremental. It's better than losing, but, you know, statistically, we might consider that pretty much just flat. But look at the internet. Over 17% of the dealer dollars are being spent on online advertising today, where 10 years ago, there wasn't a dime being spent in that category. And my suggestion is that you can, if you look at that pie chart from 2008, you can start moving some of those internet dollars to your slice of the pie by simply having online content that gives those advertisers the reason to invest their internet dollars in your television. Let's talk about the tools and resources that you have available to you to help you to start pulling some of those dollars away from the newspaper to your television station. The first one is the internet. I cannot stress to you how important it's going to be for you to go to your local newspaper's website and spend time on that website learning about how they sell it, what types of products they're selling, what advertisers are on there. Navigate throughout the whole thing. Find their rate card. There's going to be a lot of information that you're going to want and you're going to need if you're going to try to make stuff that they're telling the local advertisers, and you need to know what they're telling them, because this is going to be the way they're positioning you, and you need to be able to calmly and factually respond to that information with a plan that's going to work better than just dumping all their dollars, their hard-earned advertising dollars, into a medium that's not necessarily going to die, but it's certainly not going to come back with any kind of strength comparable to what they had. And finally, I want to remind you, my name is Doc Holliday. I'm the president of Superior Sales Training. You can see my email address on the screen. It's Doc Holliday, 2 L's by the way. If you only put 1, it won't get to me. So Doc Holliday with 2 L's, the number 4, Doc Holliday 4, Superior Sales Training @charter.net. I apologize that it's so long, but it is what it is, all right?